Hello, so this is our first weekly devlog, and I'm joined by project manager Adam,
Hello.
one of our amazing coders, Hamza,
Hello.
and myself, who's also a programmer and creative director. So this week we made a production plan, which is very important to us. Do you want to talk about some of the tasks we made, Hamza?
Certainly. We first started with redoing our map because we found there was a few issues with our current map design. So we decided to redo our map to make it more linear and guided the player a lot better than we usually had. We also were going to add a lot more variety and unique POIs to the locations, such as military camps, jumping puzzles, dungeons and bunkers, and regular enemy patrols.
What would you say the best advantages of us converting to this more linear path?
Well, we can now guide the player and make them much more interested. Before, we had a long stretch of gameplay where nothing would catch the eye of a player and we didn't have anything that would entice them. Now we constantly have a method of where we can direct the player and keep them interested inside the game.
So basically, we're transforming our game from less of an open world and more of a narrative-driven game, which is kind of what we set out to do originally. There is still the option to traversing the world, but it's a little bit more limited than it was originally. This critical path is improved. It has a natural progression, which is easier to implement. As before, it's hard to introduce difficulty and leveling and the introduction of new items and narrative elements when you don't know where the player is going to be. With open worlds, you often have the main story and side quests. However, with our time limitations, it's very hard for us to introduce all of that into our beta release. So for alpha, we obviously decided that we should do a linear path. Are there any other things you want to talk about that we've talked about in the production plan?
Most of our decision was based on data and feedback we gathered during our testing sessions. So we had a lot of testing sessions, we got a lot of feedback from them. A lot of the things we added in were to accommodate people because it kind of got lost a lot. We added like a marker system that would like point you towards objective. We had objectives, like a full objective list. We would control line of sight to direct players, but even then, sometimes it wasn't enough. So a lot of decision came, we took all this, looked at the data, and we decided a lot of things need to change, and this is why we changed the map. We also kind of refracted and redid some of our systems just to make them a lot more better.
One of the most important things for me was actually improving our code base, and we have decided that we are going to be redoing a lot of our core systems for reusability and allow us to implement and expand upon our current systems, as at the moment they're a little bit limited, they're a little bit hard to work with. So the key ones we are reworking right now are the save system, the inventory, and the player. These are big systems that need redoing. This week, I have primarily focused on doing the save system and the inventory. So for the save system, it didn't really work before, it had a lot of issues, so we've transformed it. We've improved the modularity and accessibility of the save system with a lot of patterns. The singleton for the save manager, and as well, we also implemented the observer and the template pattern. So this essentially allows us as programmers, so me, Hamza, Adam, anyone who wants to add anything now has to add it themselves instead of it all being managed by the save system. So this means it's all extensible, and save system has core logic, which is easier to make sure we don't break. And the idea of saving your stuff goes on the person who's making that system, which makes it a lot easier to decompose and work with.
We had a bit of planning during our first half of our project. However, we decided to go much further and started using more tools for our planning. So we use much more UML charts, and we've used it for
I love the
planning
UML
out.
chart. It's good.
Yeah, really good because it's the first time using all these different patterns. We used singleton observer before. Now we're trying. What's the one you're using, Adam, for the player?
So the player's using the commander pattern at the moment.
And I believe there was a second pattern you're implementing now.
Yes, so the skill tree rework is using a hybrid of the strategy and the factory pattern.
With these patterns, it's basically just a lot more efficient and it makes a lot more sense. For the inventory as well, I've also gone with the command pattern. So this week, I've actually implemented loads of functionality for it. So I had to replace some of the old functionality. So select an item, deselect the items. But I've also added a bunch of new functionality, such as moving items to different slots, updating those icons, dropping items, stackable items. All the functionality is now available, and it just needs setting up on the item side, and there's a couple of UI elements that need to be updated, but the core functionality is there, it's ready, and it's going to be great. We can add so much to that system now.
We have started a key code system because we want to do puzzles for the player to work out. We were looking at games much like Legacy and other games that have key code systems, and we're going to do little puzzles to unlock areas and safes.
It's just meant to code exploration, so you have to find the code first. You've got to actually look around an area, you can't just get in. And the idea is this is for like our bunkers, which are basically our version of dungeons, but also for loot as well. So it encourages the player to actually explore and find narrative elements and actually appreciate these POIs that they'll be visiting. And how is that key ecosystem going for you?
It's going quite well. There's a few things I'm experimenting with, and I hope to bring good results soon.
That sounds very good. Overall, we've done quite a lot this week, and we're hoping to do a lot more in the near future, next week. I think our biggest focus is going to be on the map. The level design is a crazy big workload. I think at the moment we have spent a considerable amount of our time on level design, so that's obviously going to be quite a big task. What are you looking forward most about level design, Hamza?
Because we had a very large map, and I think sometimes it was a bit excessive. I'm very excited to start shaving down the edges that we had to make it so it's a lot more cleaner. Because the island itself, I did not believe was as streamlined as it could be. And I am very excited to start chopping off certain areas.
I'm excited for doing the jumping puzzles. As my friends and colleagues may know, I implemented voting for the player, and this was actually never been implemented in the map, so I'm very excited. As one of our main POIs for the map is going to have jumping puzzles, which makes the map a little bit harder to navigate. You have to work out these puzzles to navigate your way through the map, but it also means it includes the system that I made so long ago that we actually haven't ever included until now.
Is there anything else you're excited for?
In terms of level design, I've recently, upon recommendation from our lecturer, have been tinkering with some terrain generation software called Terragen, and I'm quite interested to see what we can whip up with this software and see if we can actually translate what we generate in there into our game.
Yeah, it would definitely save us a lot of time in the manual sculpting that we did in the past. Obviously, we'll still want to make the level feel actually alive, but it's going to save a whole bunch of time. We don't have to sculpt entire valleys or ravines or entire hills. It'll save us a whole bunch of time on general terrain.
I'm excited about is the whole new system of how we're doing our maps. We're changing them into different scenes, how we're breaking into bunkers, the cave, and different areas. So we have much more control over lighting.
I'm quite happy about that because we'll finally get to make use of the HDRP lighting for the bunkers, which we have used. It's a little bit underutilized. Our scene is quite large, it's quite foresty, which means the processing is quite hard on your components. So adding like reflection probes is easily going to drop performance of our game. Splitting stuff up into scenes, I think, will actually allow us to improve the visuals of our game, especially when you're doing your dungeons. Well, that's it. We've been Scopium, and that was our weekly devlog. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and get on our website to follow the update of our game. It will be releasing later this year in June, July, one of those months. So eventually, when we drop our Steam page, make sure to wishlist it as well. Yep, that's it. Later.